All right, my name is Matthew Bellisario here on the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel, and I'm really excited to have with me today Elam Friedlander. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm terrible with names on this channel.
No,
So
it's good.
it's
It's good.
Elam, right?
Elam Friedlander. Yeah,
Elam Friedlander,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
And so you are a jazz bassist and composer originally from Israel, correct?
That's right. That's right.
And then you went to New York and went to the New School for Jazz and Contemporary
hmm
Music. And we have here your wonderful debut album on the Cellar Music label. So we're going to talk about that
Thank you so
today as
much.
well, which I really enjoyed this. This is a really cool album.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you
So
enjoyed it.
yeah, I definitely want to hear the story behind it. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of started playing music and what did you start when you were living in Israel, and then did you get into jazz there? Or
Yeah. I played. Well, as a kid, I played a bit of piano and some cello. Not very seriously, but and then some of my friends were into jazz, so I wanted to join, and I don't know, bass was kind of the closest to cello, and I liked it, so I just started playing, and yeah, just one thing kind of led to another, I guess. From there, I went to this high school that a lot of people go to, um, and that's when I got more serious about it, and then yeah, later on, I moved to New York when I was about 22, and met a lot of great people that helped me a lot and are still teaching me a lot, and it's a it's a great thing. Yeah.
is there an actual jazz scene in Israel though? Are there a lot of musicians there that are into jazz that you kind of were exposed to at first there?
There are actually a lot of great musicians from there. There's not a lot of places to play. I mean, they come and go a little bit, but there's somehow a lot of musicians from there here, and in general. I think it's because that generation of, you probably know, Omer Avital and Avishai Cohen,
Uh huh. Yeah.
the two Avishais. I don't know, that the whole generation. Some of them came back and kind of educated, and this one pianist, Amit Golan, who died, but he really educated a whole generation of musicians, myself included, that went out to New York, and just he did a really great job of opening people to the music.
And when you got to
Yeah.
New York, how did that work? So did you go right to the new school and start studying there, and then meet people from there? Is that
Yeah, well, there's this program that also, actually, because of Amit, he created this program of, it's a new school branch, I guess, in Israel. So a lot of people, you do half of the studies in Tel Aviv and half in finish it up in New York, which is what I did. And so when I came, there was already a lot of people I knew from home that had been at some point of their studies. And I also met, yeah, at school. I was also doing some a lot of classical when I came. I got playing in the Madness Orchestra, and studying with Oren O'Brien, this teacher, who's really great. They just did a movie about her, actually, about the first woman in the orchestra or something like that. It
oh
got,
really?
yeah, yeah, she's wonderful. She's a special, really unique musician, and a great person.
So what did you study there at the new school? Did you
Um,
specifically jazz or everything?
yeah, jazz, but I kind of really wanted to get also into classical, so I had private lessons and played the orchestra and some ensembles, and then yeah, jazz. Um, anyhow, I think jazz is really, you learn it through meeting great older musicians, or just, and learning from them. It's a real oral tradition that you learn from the source. It's not really a classroom thing. I mean, it's good. You get certain things in the classroom. For me, mostly was the visa, and that I could be in New York without worrying about my status or whatever. But yeah, I think learning is mainly from playing with experienced and great musicians that are passing on the knowledge that they have.
And who were a lot of those? Did you were you able to go to a lot of the jam sessions and things like that in New York City? Because that's, of course, everybody says that's a really big learning experience of how you learn to interact with all the musicians.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's always something happening here. You know, the sessions at Smalls, for example, or at Mesro, or now there's Ornithology, which has sessions. There's a bunch of places. Close Up just opened. Yeah, there's always some kind of session happening, and you meet a lot of musicians through that. I mean, I personally like also doing just booking a session with specific people, and then you can really get to something musical, and I mean the jam sessions are great too, but it's a quick turnaround, and then people kind of have a specific concept of what they're trying to do when they come to a jam session. But then when you do a session, you can really try to create some music together and get to some, you know, some creative forces.
But
Yeah.
in playing bass, are there any particular people that you were able to learn from there at the jam sessions or in sessions with other, whether any
Yeah,
particular players or
there was a
I'm
few
always curious.
teachers and musicians. I mean, I heard and I hear so many great bass players. Some of the ones that really helped me and inspired me are Nat Reeves, for example, who he actually wrote some of the liner notes for the record, and him, Greg August, also someone I really learned a lot from. He also kind of plays a lot of different things and does classical and Latin and jazz and writes a lot of music. He's really great. And David Wong is another one, who's a very just great bass player who played with so many people. Roy Haynes and Jimmy Heath and everybody, Hank Jones. So yeah, I just met the different people I connected with, and they really give me a lot of inspiration and support. So that's really nice.
What about recordings? I'm always curious to find out what
Yeah,
recordings inspired or any particular jazz albums that were really influential.
yeah. I mean, there's so many, but something like "A Love Supreme," John Coltrane. That's really a masterpiece. In general, Coltrane I think is a huge inspiration. Just his attitude towards music and towards life, and how the combination of all those things, and his soulfulness and power and everything, and innovation, creativity. That's one album. I mean, I used to listen a lot to Night Train by Oscar Peterson, which is a classic, of course. Ray Brown is one of my favorites. Just really amazing bass playing. Really, you can hear it's him from the first note. I mean, there's so many. Also, not from jazz. I mean, the Chopin Nocturnes, the
Interesting.
Arthur Rubinstein playing those. I mean, there's just good music. I love good music, and just try to do whatever I can to learn from all of that.
And so you have studied like back into the tradition of the traditional jazz artists, right? The hard bop, bebop guys, and this album here, which I definitely want to get to and talk about how this came
Yeah,
about. But this definitely has a very modern, progressive sound to it. So it's and kind of a
yeah,
concept album, which is kind of cool because there aren't too many people doing things like this. That's like a concept album and kind of the way this is laid out, which is pretty cool. So how did, first of all, how did this idea come together for you versus perhaps doing a more traditional album for your first album?
yeah. That's a great question. I, I mean, the thing with the elements is not a new concept in itself. I mean, there's been Alice Coltrane did an album of the elements, and it's been done before. But I just took that as a model. Just I thought it would work well in the concept of going in and out of something that's more free, and then into something more structured, and how to connect between all those things. I thought that could be a nice contrast between different colors and different ideas. But it could be created in different ways for sure. But I just stuck with that and was like, okay, how do I want to build this? So I would write, a composition for each element, and then see how I can connect all those in a way that's not necessarily planned completely. I wanted it to be something that's for me, what jazz, the roots of jazz. Definitely improvisation and something happening in the moment. Whether, a lot of times there's a lot of great music happening these days, but sometimes it's they put it in the jazz category, but it's more planned and more structured than you would think it is, or more than what those giants that we listen to, what their spirit was in the music was a different kind of thing. And of course, coming from black music and from the blues and from the soulfulness and all that is, of course, the source of all of that. So yeah, I'm trying to come from all those inspirations and create something, and that's what came out. I just wanted to create, and also specifically the musicians who are on it, Abraham and Eric, also Luis, but Luis I met kind of later, but Abraham and Eric really have been mentoring me and nurturing me, for some years. So this album is really also homage to them, and kind of wanted to create something with them in mind. So a lot of times playing with in the band that they had, they would just play a tune and then go straight into something else, and that really inspired me. So I wanted to create something with that kind of conceptual thing in it. So, and that's what came out.
So you played with both of them before, and they play together a lot, right? And I think they went to school together.
Yeah, they grew up together. They known each other for years, since maybe age 9, something like that. They all grew up. Him, Abe, Eric, and Nasheed Waits as well. All grew up in that area of the village, kind of West Village, I believe, or Greenwich Village. And of course, Freddie Waits is Nasheed Waits' dad, so he was a prominent figure in their upbringing and their musical education, and they really they're as close to the source as you can get. They're just really coming from living the music and playing it and doing it on the highest level possible. And Eric played with Jackie McLean for years. Abe played with A.T., Roy Haynes. I mean, they all played with so many different people. Eric played with Andrew Hill. I mean, and Richard Davis was his godfather. So they really come from the source, and they pass that on in a very very special way. So I was blessed to meet them and be around them.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I mean, yeah, because this is a pretty experienced lineup you're playing with here.
Yeah.
And when you were writing the music, so you had them in mind somewhat already. And when you're writing these pieces, you're writing for each instrument just like a basic outline of what you want to do, and then let them kind of play it the way they want to play it, or how does that work? Because it seems like there is structure to this, but then you hear a lot of improvisation going on as you go, a lot of dynamics and different things.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely had them in mind. I knew they would be on the album, and I talked to them about it before even finishing writing the music, or while I was writing it. I knew it was going to be with them. And yeah, I mean, composition is you can approach it from so many different angles. I really love melodies, and I really connect to a melody that I feel that affects me or something. So I like to start with that, and then you have this kind of core tune or song that you write, and then from little by little I understood, okay, this melody I want it to be played by this person or by this person, because it can be interchangeable, but some melodies fit more on the saxophone or fit more, like for example, Water was just more fitting on the piano. It just has more of the movement it has is more fitting on the piano, and there's less breath in between things, so it's a little on air instrument it would be different. You know what I mean? In those kind of things, and Earth was just more fitting on the bass. I knew that I wanted to give in terms of a feature also to playing the melody for different instruments and not just maybe classic like there's one person playing the melody and also the intros. I wanted to give each person a place to
Which I
open it
really
up.
like that.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's they play so great that whatever you'll give them is they're gonna eat it up and create something great. So we had a lot of fun. I mean, we had the day we recorded was actually a pretty short day in the studio. It was maybe 6 hours,
Oh, really? For the
something
whole
like
thing?
that. Yeah, and we just kind of did one or two takes of everything, and then we had a gig that same night. I remember with the great Dwayne Eubanks, who is a great trumpet player and also one of those guys that I blessed to be around and really has uh, has been teaching me and helping me. And we've been playing a lot. He's currently in Austria teaching a semester, and he's actually the next project I have. We recorded already. We did a live recording as well as a studio recording. We're gonna put them together
Oh,
into one
nice.
album, which is nice. And he's on that. So that's actually similar personnel, but no piano. It's trumpet, bass, saxophone, and drums with Eric and Abe and Dwayne. So that's the next thing on the horizon. We're
Oh,
gonna need
cool.
to mix that and all that. But
And is that all original material as well?
yeah, that's original stuff. Yeah,
And is it recorded? You recorded this one at GB's Juke Joint,
right.
right?
That's right. It's a great studio. I was just there the other day for some other project, like a collective thing, also with Eric actually, and great guitar player Will Sellenrad, who we're working on an album together. And yeah, there's a lot of great musicians, and GB's Juke Joint is an amazing studio. I highly recommend. It has everything you need, and the best engineers, and just a great place to record for sure.
And so that was pretty, but it's pretty quick then. You just went in, set up, do your checks, and then there you go. You go through them once or twice, and then that's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
record.
we did one rehearsal before, but those guys are just highest professionals. So, any musical situation you put them in, they just create something beautiful. And yeah, we just went in and tried not to interfere and do what I can, and that's the snapshot of what happened at that moment.
Yeah.
Um,
So are you, when you get in there, are you always, you know that this is going to be a recording for all time when you're playing and everything? Is there any kind of stress on whether or not it's like, oh, am I gonna play exactly what I want to play? Is this gonna come out exactly, or you just don't worry about it and just you guys have played so much together, you just don't think about it? Because it seems like that would be kind of maybe a little pressure.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, each musical situation in the end, whether it's recorded or not, is just what happens in that moment. So there's never gonna be any perfection is not a real thing anyway. So you just want to do what you can at that moment, and then a recording is just a snapshot of what that was. It could be sometimes more to your liking, sometimes less, but whether you're stressed or not, it's just gonna be what it is. So just got to do your best, and like someone like Eric and Abe, both of them record everything. I mean, they just have like a little mini disc or even on the phone. Every musical situation they record because you learn from it. You listen to what you did and you're like, oh, this I could have done different. I mean, it's a snapshot of what happened. It's not good or bad. It's just what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Tell us about this cool cover. This is a pretty cool painting here. Tell us about the jacket and then yeah, it's a
yeah,
pretty neat cover.
yeah, I really like it. It's actually um, so the label Cellar Music has a graphic designer, Perry Chua, and his wife Lori. That's an artwork of hers, and it's a really beautiful piece of art. And we just, I mean, I sent them kind of a sketch of like in terms of words, like oh what I'm looking for generally, and he said, oh, We have this artwork of my wife, Lori. Let me know what you think. And I thought it's perfect. It really matches everything. It has different colors and kind of an abstract thing. So I was like, of course, let's put that, you know. So I was really happy that's the people I found, you know, to
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a little
work
bit
with.
different than what you typically see on Corey's
Yeah.
releases. So I want to hear definitely how did you meet Corey? How did you come into contact to actually put this record out? Because also the music here is a little bit different than what he usually puts out on the label. You know,
Yeah.
he's usually kind of straight, you know, more straight ahead stuff, even though he will do different things. But this is, you know, pretty
Yeah.
modern sounding. So how did all that come together?
Yeah, I hadn't met Corey like face to face, but I heard much about him, of course, and know his label and albums from the label that are beautiful. And actually, some GB, the guy from GB's Juke Joint, Glenn Forrest, he knew Corey. He knows him well, and there was just an event over there actually involved with Corey playing, and it was really nice to I actually met him, so that was nice about a week ago. But yeah, so we recorded, and GB was very supportive and did such a great job with the record and making it sound, as it does. And so he also kind of talked to Corey and said, "Hey, there's this record that we did, and if take a listen and see what you think." And I sent him an email as well with all the details, and thankfully, and he liked it, and he decided, and it's true, it's definitely a different kind of thing, but he's a wonderful musician, and he just likes to, he takes what he likes to do and puts it on there. So I'm really happy it worked out. They do a great job with everything, and with all the publicity and the radio and all that stuff.
And
Yeah,
then what, as far as putting it on vinyl, I know that's, you know,
yeah,
some, a lot of people still aren't doing vinyl because it's expensive to do.
yeah,
I think there's 200 of these. I think were made of
yeah.
this on vinyl. So, what went into that as far as deciding to put it on vinyl?
Yeah, I just I thought it could be really cool to have it on vinyl because I mean vinyl is honestly it's the best. Like I mean for me because it's just you have a physical representation of the music and
Yeah,
also the sound is
yeah.
yeah
There's
it's
nothing like having the liner notes
right.
and all that stuff on the
That's right.
and
That's right. And it's sonically it's just a whole other world than the compressed sound of streaming and I believe in it much more. Even though of course it's expensive, but also I really wanted it to be there, and I gave a copy to the musicians, and it's just a nice thing to have if you're willing to invest in it, and even if it just you end up having some copies at home, that's cool. I enjoy having it, and I'm glad there's a documentation of what we did.
yeah, definitely. And you take them out to the gigs and stuff too. Do you usually have them for sale out there?
Yeah, well, I recently got the vinyl, so the release gig we did at Smalls, I only had some CDs with me. I didn't have the vinyl yet, but some people were asking about the vinyl, so hopefully, the next thing we'll do, we might have something in the summer. We're still planning some more gigs. But we'll see. So I'll definitely bring some vinyl, or if someone asks, and I'll send it to them or whatever. I think you can order it through the Cellar Music website as well, I
Yeah,
believe.
it's on the Bandcamp website. So I'll put a
Right,
link below.
Bandcamp.
Yeah,
Right.
where people can get that. And then,
Definitely.
so when as far as New York goes, tell us a little bit about the scene there now, because I heard it's a little bit different since the pandemic and all that stuff. Is it everything
Yeah.
still a lot of stuff going on?
Yeah, I mean it's still definitely vibrant. There's music happening every night and everything, and it's New York, so that's a great thing. Um, I think yeah, I think these days there's great music in a lot of places, obviously, and globalization, and there's great musicians in everywhere and coming from different places that um, it's much more common now to just be exposed to the music everywhere, and then people come to New York, and it's still definitely the center of that. There's the place with the most, you know, densely populated musician, like high level musicians in the world, I would say, or one of them for sure. And for jazz, it's definitely, you know, the center, and that. So that's a great thing. You know, you could just any given day pick a club and you'll go see some really great music. And often also a lot of legends perform here. You know, when they're not touring or whatever, you can go see, you know, Billy Hart or George Coleman or you know, so many people like Eric and Abe and Luis playing around the city. Just you know, so that's a really great thing. And you meet a lot of musicians from different places. You make connections, people from Europe, from Japan, from all kinds of places, South Africa, everywhere. So
What
that's
about so what as far as what kind of first of all what kind of bass do you play? I'm curious
well,
about.
this bass. Well, actually, the bass that's on the recording is not the bass that I have now, but the bassist on the recording is a Juzek, I believe it was. But that one had later on some kind of problem, some buzzing and something. So yeah, I wanted to sell it, and I actually, because of the problems, I contacted the insurance, and they helped me a lot actually. Clarion Insurance, I recommend if anybody, and and yeah, I actually bought this other instrument that I really love, which is on the new recording that's gonna come out at some point, I hope. And it's a German bass. It's from early 20th century.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. It has an extension, which is cool. So I kind of tried to play with that on the new thing. You know, write a composition that has use with that because it's kind of cool. It has a special color to it. Um, yeah,
And is that do you play electric bass as well as stand up or the
I
double
play
bass or
some.
what?
I play some fretless a little bit. But I would say mostly upright. But I do like I like the fretless a lot because it's kind of a hybrid. It has the electric thing, but also this warmness of no frets, and you can kind of get a warm, woody sound out of it too. So I want to explore that more for sure.
And do you what? So do you practice with both, or do you, what is your practice routine like, or do you play so much that you go out and
Yeah,
play a gig a lot, or do you actually play a lot still practice?
yeah. I mean, always, you know, you always want to practice and try to get better in any way you can, you know. So that would be practicing as well, of course, and playing a lot mostly, and listening and developing different concepts. But definitely, I mean, practicing is like you're preparing those ingredients for that when you play. Everything is there, and you can you know just dive in and develop through the music. You know, so it's all part of the process to be a more full musician uh, and know more and be able to execute more things and develop more things. It's all part of it.
As far as kind of like merging together this idea of jazz and classical, which
Yeah,
that's been going on for quite a while. I mean, you have all the
yeah,
whole third stream movement and different people that were doing that.
yeah.
And so, when you're, what do you recommend as far as like people that are learning to play the bass or any instrument for that matter, as far as musically coming up with your own ideas? You know, a lot of people, we all, I think, who play instruments find certain people that we're drawn to, and then we kind of copy them for a little while or different things, and then kind of come up with our own language or participate in the language in our own way.
Yeah.
How did you develop that, or what do you think? Is it just immersing yourself in it for hours on end and
Yeah, you know, I think it's an endless search. You know, you're always developing, and there's never an end goal really. It's just the process is the goal itself, and yeah, I think just you need to love music and you know enjoy immersing yourself in it as you say, just do as much as you can to keep developing and not get discouraged by, if something doesn't work or if you're trying to play something and it doesn't come out. That's part of the process. Nobody we admire and look up to has always been like that. You know what I mean? It takes, you know, things have a certain process in order to grow and develop, like a tree or whatever. You need time for it to grow. You need water. You need sun. You need same thing for developing as a musician. I mean, you need to invest time and researching and practicing and developing your own thing is again something that's the goal for. I mean, depends what your goal is. Every musician is different. Some people are not interested in that, and that's fine. They want to maybe just be able to execute something extremely well, and that's their goal in their musical development, which is cool. But if you're looking to have your own identity or musical, which is what all those guys we admire had very strongly, then the thing is, I think, to not be afraid to check out every music or every musician. That's not, people sometimes think if you copy or whatever, that's going to bring you further away from being yourself, but that's, I think, couldn't be less true. I mean, it's like you grow up with your friends or your family and you see how they talk, how they act, and then you have your own personality. You learn from
Right.
from seeing different people, and then that helps you to develop your thing. You know what I mean? So that's a constant, endless process, which is the beauty of it. You just it never ends. You keep on trying different things and playing and playing with different musicians and listening to different kinds of music and composing, and yeah, it's that's what it is. I mean, the whole industry and financial part is a whole other. It's not related. Uh,
Right.
so yeah.
And then, so how important do you think theory is in learning theory? Of
Yeah.
course, you have the technical aspect of playing the instrument,
Yeah.
and then you've got the theory of what you're doing, but then you just have the musicality, which is the most important thing. But
Right.
how important do you think theory is as far as like knowing what you're playing, all the different scales, all the different modes, and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah. I think theory is basically just a written or a dogmatic explanation for what was already there. Because the overtone system has always been there. Uh, Before humans, had theory, quote unquote, so, or whatever, as well as scales and harmony and this, it's just things that people were hearing and developed naturally, and then somebody decided to put it on paper or find a way to explain it to other people. So there's nothing wrong with theory. Theory is great, but I think it's important to understand that music, you can't separate theory from music. It's not a separate thing. It's just like a way to understand. Some people understand it better through, knowing the specific scales, and this is some people. I mean, the most important thing is that you're hearing and you're playing the music in a way that's musical. If theory helps you to do that, great. But a lot of those guys we admire that were playing had never learned anything in school. They didn't have music schools.
Right.
They were just hearing something and they were striving to get to it, and that's how they did it. And that's just shows you that the music is there. The theory is just another way to understand it. It's great. I mean, it's a good thing, and it's very helpful. But it's easy sometimes to confuse the two, between being as like, oh, the theory is this thing that we have to spend time in, or else we won't be good musicians. But no, like we
Right.
want to be good musicians. The theory helps us be good musicians or understand more. Same with schools or whatever. I think it's the same thing
And
basically.
reading music as well. Are you, as far as sight reading and things like that, do you think that's fairly important, or it just depends on what you're doing? How?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're going for, and of course, it's a skill that's needed, and it's especially these days. When there's somebody brings out a chart and there's a lot of written stuff, and you want to be able to just jump right in and do that. Um, but I wouldn't say. Again, you want to be a versatile musician. You want to be able to be. I, for me at least, you want to be able to be put in every situation and, make the best music you can out of it. I would say it's a skill. It's like a set. It's like everybody needs a set of skills to do their thing. It's like a visual artist needs to know how to use a paintbrush. You know what I mean? But the paintbrush is not the art. You know what I mean? So you wanna have those skills, and they're definitely important. And you acquire them as you go along. If you're in enough situations where you have to read music, then you'll read music. And everybody has the skills that they're better at, and the things that they need to work on more, or things that maybe that skill will never be quite perfect. But skills are not equal to art. Skills are just the things that help you create the art. So as you see, there's different musicians you see in history, and some of them, their technique wasn't exactly like something you would say, this is like the perfect technique or the perfect, I don't know, whatever. But the art they created was what was amazing. So that's what we're striving for, personally. That
Yeah.
unique kind of artistic thing, and then whatever skills you're born with or develop in this are the ones you have, and you do what you can with what you have.
Yeah, so the technique is one thing, and the musicality is another. I was watching an interview today with
Yeah.
Eric Alexander,
Yeah.
and he was talking about that and how there's a lot of people that have a very, very high level of virtuosity on the instrument,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily equate to being a great musician.
Right.
And where that whole musicality thing comes in, and he was talking about when you're playing, you should think about each note that you're playing and why you're playing it versus just kind of running through a bunch of notes. Which you could in any music. I think that's a danger. Like even in rock music or blues music or whatever, you can just play a pentatonic scale and not necessarily be thinking exactly about what you're going to play. You just know that if you play a certain note in that pattern or whatever, that it's going to fit. And that's
Right.
different than playing something intentionally for it to sound exactly the way you're trying to make it sound, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as long as you're listening and you're striving to create music that you're hearing and something honest and intentional, it's all good. Sometimes we don't know what's going to come out. It's not always so planned, and that's the beauty of it too. I mean, it's like we're having a conversation right now. We're not really sure what's going to be next, but
Right.
that's just what it is. It's that's the beauty of it, especially in improvisational settings and jazz, which is the improvisational music. So it's just I think, what is your mindset when you're playing this kind of music? And like you said, I mean, of course there's, especially these days when the technique level is very, very high. I think the highest that it's been, the virtuosity and everything, but doesn't mean necessarily that the musicality is at its top or more than it was. It's definitely not more than it was. I think it might be even less.
Right.
Uh, but then when you play with someone who's really about music and not related to all the other stuff, then you feel that and you hear that. And that's personally what I appreciate and look for, and when playing with someone, and what I try to do when I play. But again, there's so many different ways of going about it. Like there's different ways of living your life. Everybody is looking for different things and different kind of people.
So when you're writing these songs, are you writing on the piano or on bass or on both, or how are you, or is it just in your head and you're writing the notes, or
Mostly on piano, because piano is just it's a really unique and masterful instrument. It just has everything there. It's a whole orchestra. I mean, you can play everything at the same time. You can play it separate. So for me, it's always definitely on the piano. And then later, I'm like, maybe this melody could be nice on the bass, and maybe I'm thinking about it while I'm writing, or thinking of a concept I want to create, and then try to like translate that into on the piano or the harmony, or you take little parts and you slowly build that, and then you add another thing, and in the end you have something.
yeah, yeah. How long did
Yeah.
it take you to do? How long did it take you to put all this together? As
Um,
far as
I was writing it for a second, maybe like a year, I would say. Um, because I would write a little bit, and then I was like, maybe I don't like this, and I changed it, or it took me a second to find what's the next thing to come after that. And then sometimes it takes less time, sometimes more. But I think it's got to be patient with, you're trying to write something. It doesn't have to come out all at the same time. It just, maybe you come out with one bar, you're like, oh, I like that. And then the next day you're like trying to fit another bar. And sometimes it comes out, sometimes you get another 5 bars, sometimes you get the whole tune. Um,
You
yeah,
record as you
that's just,
go. You record as you go the parts as you go, so you can put it all together, so you don't forget. I know a lot of times, if I'm doing something, something will come to mind. If I don't write it down to record it, the next day I'm like, oh man, how did I play that again or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I usually, have the voice notes on my phone. I just record that, and when I come back to it, whenever that is, and I just like, oh, okay, I did that. Let's see how I can develop that. Or maybe some days I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then the next I come back to it, I'm like, oh man, I don't like it. I'm gonna start over with something else. That's happened plenty of times. So at some point something sticks, and then sometimes you listen to it later and you're like, man, why did I write that? Maybe you don't like what you wrote before, but that's just what the snapshot of what you wrote at that time. You thought that was cool, so that's fine.
Yeah. Do you have a recording software there that you record on at your house, or do you record anything,
Um,
or are you pretty much just
Not at home. I mean, I have like a mostly a writing technology like Sibelius, and all those, but that's not for recording. But yeah, I just use the simplest, just in my phone because it's mostly just to have a reference. It's
right?
not really for recording on a high quality. But there's plenty of studios around here that are wonderful, and GB's is great. And then I have that good friend Will, who's a great guitar player, who has a setup in his home, so we do some recordings there with Eric, and that's great. Any recording situation you can get into is great, because it's a chance to listen to what happened in that moment.
And when is this next? Is this next record going to be on vinyl as well, or is it? Do you know what label it's going to be on yet, and all that
I'm
stuff?
not
Or
sure. I still have to mix it and master, and then kind of see what's gonna happen with it. But I hopefully will put it out on vinyl as well, and something like that. But yeah, it was as I said, one part was recorded live, and then we also did a studio thing. So I'm feeling like it could be cool to combine them somehow.
would it be
Have
like 2 albums or two
either
record
two
set,
albums
or
or maybe one album with part of it from live, part of it from the studio. I'm not really sure yet, but first I have to mix and then see what we have to work with, and but we'll get to it. I'm just still dealing with this album
yeah, yeah.
with different things, of course, and
And this says this was mixed by Colin
yep,
Monex, and
yeah, yeah,
mastered by Dave Darlington. Were you involved in listening to the mixes as they were doing it, or did you listen to it after they mixed it?
yeah, yeah.
And
I
then,
was in the mix. Usually, you're present and you work together with the engineer. I mean, he's obviously an expert and knows he's doing the work, but sometimes you talk about it like, oh, maybe br- this instrument needs to be more present. The levels here need to go down or up, or you want a little bit of reverb here. You want, whatever it is to make it sound the best, and you give them a reference maybe of an album you like or a sound of an album you like, and yeah, it's a pretty magical process because it really changes how it sounds.
yeah, it's incredible. This is. It sounds really nice. I would, on my system, it was recorded very well. It was mixed well. It really has a nice, three-dimensional sound to it, warm sound
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's more of a modern mix, so you don't have a lot of hard panning, but it really works well with the way this sounds. So did you already
Right.
have that kind of in mind, or as far as how
Um,
you wanted that to sound, or you just waited, you got the mix back, okay, then you just modified a little bit, or that kind of thing?
yeah, I mean, first it was first thinking of also, do we want to record it in one room? Do we want to do it in booths?
Yeah, were you guys isolated at all?
Yes. So, well, the day before or the few days before the recording, he asked me. So, we're doing booths, right? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And I thought about it. Talked to some people, and I decided in the end to do it in the booth. And I'm glad because, especially for bass sound, that's much easier to get a good result because if you're in the same room, there's a lot of bleed, and suddenly if you get to a high volume, things can get overpower the bass because it's not a loud instrument in its nature when you're playing acoustic, especially and everything. So when it's isolated, you can have much more control over how you want it to sound on the recording, and I think they did a great job. And yeah, and then in the mix, it was just like one day of mixing. We just went in and did a few hours, and it was really nice and great experience for me to learn more about being in that situation, even if I'm not doing it myself, but just listening to what they do and maybe telling, oh, I want more of this, more of that.
As far as
Yeah.
playing in the booth, I've heard different people talk about it's different, obviously, than if you're playing on a stage or if you're playing all together in the same room. Is it hard to have that kind of, looking back and forth at each other when you're playing? Is that more difficult when you're in the booth isolated?
Yeah, they good studios tend to, sorry, I just moved the computer. Um, Good studios tend to have good, visibility, and they set it up in a way where it's possible to be in a booth but still see the musicians you're playing with and everything. Of course, it's not like being in the same room. It's a different thing. But I like the fact, that I hear everything very well with the earphones and headphones, and
Right.
I don't have to overplay because I'm right next to my instrument. I hear it well. It's in my headphones as well, and I can, change the levels. I want more drums. I want more saxophone. I want whatever. So I like that. But of course, being in the same room is a whole other energy to it. So both have their good things and bad, of course.
Right. Yeah, it's nice having your own custom mix, right, in your headphones when you're playing. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, I want to hear the drums a little more. Oh, I want to hear the
yeah,
saxophone. Yeah,
definitely,
and then yourself, of course, because
for
on
sure.
stage when you're playing, you're always kind of battling the whether you can hear yourself or you can hear the other instruments or what have you.
Yeah, that happens a lot. If there's good sound somewhere, that's always nice and helps a lot to play. But you don't always get that. You got to work with what you have, and for sure.
What do you think as far as difficulties go, being a full-time musician, as far as making a living?
Yeah.
A lot of people teach, a lot of people do a lot of different things. So tell us a little bit
Right.
about that as far as,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
definitely not easy, especially in a music that's not commercial, and not very financially, it's not something that will sell, it's not a popular music or something that has any real profit. It's in terms of recording, but also even gigs, it's not necessarily very profitable. I mean, they don't pay so well. It depends on the gig. Some gigs pay better, some less, but yeah, as it goes, if the more the music is more commercial and more marketable, the more money you make for the most part.
right?
So yeah, financially it's definitely not an easy venture, but if you're honest with the kind of art you want to create and the music you want, then that's what you do. And you either, as you said, you can use what you do to make money, like teaching or playing as many gigs as you can or whatever, or do something else, like have another career on the side, or every person does a little bit different. um, Me personally, I was doing some teaching. I was actually teaching swimming. I still do sometimes, but right now I'm a little all over the place, so not right now. But yeah, so I might try to do more teaching, and I like to teach, and it's fun, and you do whatever you can. Just gigging is hard because it's very unpredictable.
Yeah. So
Some
how is that? Are you able to like book things up where you can kind of consistently go and play here, or a week at a place? I know that used to be kind of popular, and I think some of the people that have been around for a while are able to get maybe 5 days in a club somewhere. But are
Yeah.
you able to kind of line up where you could actually go from like different cities and play and kind of set those up where you could kind of almost do a tour thing, or how does
Yeah,
that work?
that happens. But I think these days it's much less common to have like a residency at a club, like it used to be. In maybe in the '60s or the '90s or the '80s or whatever. They used to have like, there was the five spot in New York. They used to have like a month, playing there,
Right.
or some place like the Vanguard has a week, but that's also uncommon for. It's not a very like there's certain people who play there. It's a very specific group of people that plays there. And then you sometimes you get some tours in Europe or something where you have a few gigs and hopefully you can make some money and have the gigs pay off. It depends. It really depends on the tour and the stuff. But it's yeah, you gotta just find the right situations and but the thing is mostly to play as much as you can and make great music, whether it's a gig or not. Whether it's just a session or whatever. You want to just play and create the whatever whatever music you can in the best way. And sometimes gigs, it can be a profitable gig or whatever, but nobody's listening or whatever. That
Yeah.
happens as well. So it doesn't already necessarily mean good music or that you know it's more fun to play at a certain place and than even just with your partners, musical partners in a house or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what's aggravates me is like, oh, I live here in Birmingham, Alabama, and
Yeah,
we don't get hardly anybody coming through this area
yeah,
that plays jazz unless they're a fairly big name, and you only get maybe like two of those a year or so. Like last year, we had Samara Joy.
yeah.
She came through, fantastic. Of course, she's on the Verve label, so they can, you
Right,
know, book
right.
book these larger venues and fill those. But as far as like
Yeah,
the small jazz clubs, unless you're in one of these bigger cities like Chicago, New York, maybe Nashville now starting to get somewhat some jazz presence, or L.A. They like we won't see a lot of these musicians on the Cellar label come through Birmingham or even come through Atlanta for that matter.
right,
We can drive a couple of hours, and so how do you
right.
see that? Do you see that as a way to change that? Where do you have to have management that's able to book these clubs to where you can actually have a steady flow of drive place to place? Or
Yeah, I think the industry has changed a lot. I mean, there's a lot less money now. I mean, there never was a lot of money. It's because it's a niche of art form. It's not a popular music. Not it's not something like Taylor Swift or
right,
or something like that, which is cool. But it's a whole different thing. It's almost like a different career or different. So and now there's even less money in it. So to get a tour or to get you need the funds, so it really depends. It's not even necessarily about which musicians. Like some people get hooked up with certain cliques or certain need managements that can book, but it's not that they're better musicians than a lot of others that are. There's some that are just playing in the city, but they're the best musicians in the world. So it's really depends on how you. That's all another matter. It's like how do you find yourself in the industry and how do you create a career inside this thing. And there's people who are wonderful at doing that, and music is like a second priority for them.
right,
And there's
right.
the opposite, and then there's people that are amazing musicians but also found a very nice place in the industry, and that's great. So it's really depends. It's a case by case thing, and you do what you can to get gigs and to do that. But that's not related to music. That's just like almost like
Marketing, business,
yeah, it's
yeah,
business. It's more of a business thing, and these days, especially with social media and all that, it's related to how many followers you have, and
yeah, yeah.
which is again a whole other kind of career. I mean, it's building your brand and all. I don't know much about that, unfortunately, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because I think jazz makes up like 4% of all record sales, right? And
Right.
that's like a very small sliver.
I thought it would be less even, but
Yeah, it's something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
and then you, of course, probably a pretty good chunk of that are going to be some of the bigger names,
for
that.
sure, for sure.
But yeah, it's kind of it's definitely a love of for the art for sure because
Yeah,
the all these pop artists, in my opinion, they're musically not nearly as engaging or as interesting to listen to, but that's kind of which is kind of interesting because back, if you go back in time to the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, jazz was the popular music
right.
of the time, and of course it was a little bit different. It was swing music, and I think once bebop got in there and hard bop and everything kind of started to become more listener oriented versus maybe dance
Right.
oriented, that
Right.
maybe
Right.
things changed. But yeah, it's definitely a tough road. I mean, even like just doing this YouTube channel, it's like
Yeah.
I get, yeah, I'm like, I just kind of get upset sometimes. I'm like, people should be interested in this album, and it's like only 100 people
Of
watch the
course.
video, and I'm like, well, this is,
Of course.
this is crazy. But yeah,
Of
it's
course.
definitely one of those things where it's just a love for the music.
Yeah, and but you're
Yeah,
doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and we appreciate your, your support for music and your, you know, creativity and making all this happen. So that's always great. And a lot of good things. It's like you go eat in some restaurant in a village and somewhere, and it's a grandma cooking the best food in the world, and much better than going to McDonald's. So
right,
just because something is big and popular and mainstream doesn't mean it's good quality necessarily. It can be,
right.
but a lot of times if you know kind of make it into a factory kind of thing, then it loses its source. So
Right.
it's part of it too.
So as far as what's coming up, you talked a little bit about this other project coming up. But as far as playing goes, before we close out here, tell us a little bit about what's going on as far as what you're doing here playing coming up.
Yeah, I have some gigs this week. I'm playing at Ornithology, which is a great club that I really love. That This guy Mitch Borden, he opened Smalls, he opened Fat Cat, which are very legendary clubs in New York City, and pretty recently, last few years, him and his wife Rie opened Ornithology and also Ornithology Cafe, which is one next to it. It's two clubs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, those are great, and I recorded there the live version of that next thing, so it's a great place. Where else? Yeah, I'm playing there. I'm just playing in town for the most part. Um, I was supposed to have something in Europe, but I think that's postponed. And yeah, just whatever comes up. I think maybe at Mesro in a few months. Just this place, perhaps Seeds, which is this guy Ohad Talmor, who's a great saxophone player and really great at also creating spaces for music and creativity. So yeah, I'm doing whatever I can to play music.
Cool. Well, I'll put your website below. Everybody can find that, and yeah,
Thank
definitely want to
you.
keep up with everything that's going on with you, and looking forward to more music from you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So much.
I do have one more question, if you have
Sure.
time. As far as
Of course.
traveling around, taking your bass with you,
Yeah.
how was that, and what kind of do you have a certain kind of microphone or a pickup that you use on your bass? I'm always curious about the technical stuff.
Um, well, the bass I have here, I have the just like a regular pickup. I think it's a realist. I mean, there's the realist, and then there's another one that's really good. But I think I have on this one the realist. I have to check, but
So you
I
pretty much
recommend
it's
those a lot. We say?
so pretty much you can just plug right in to
Yeah, yeah.
the
It's
system there.
basically there's different ways of doing it, but there's the realist goes under the bridge. It has this little copper thing that goes under the bridge, and then you plug in the cable into like this thing and straight into the amp or to the DI or to whatever. Um, And then in terms of, if you're traveling like to a gig, I don't know, in another country or something, these days it's less and less common to bring your instrument. Some people do it, but it's much less common these days. And you play on the bass of the club, or sometimes if it's a festival, they provide you a bass. And
Okay.
either, yeah, usually sometimes with a microphone, like um, yeah, or go through the DI. It depends on the situation.
And
But
when you're traveling around there in New York, do you take an amp with you, or do you just plug into the house system, or is it just different every time? Or
depends on the club. I mean, if I'm playing at somewhere like Small, so they have an amp, also Mesro, all those places. The clubs have amps, but sometimes if you play at like a bar or restaurant or something like that, then depends on the size. If the place is small, I play acoustic. If it's a little bit bigger, I have a little amp that's actually great that I carry in my backpack, very light, and it's actually a guitar amp, but it just gives you a little bit of volume, and that's just what you need for those kind of places. It's called a Black Star.
oh
It's
yeah, okay,
I've had it for a few years now, and it's perfect. I mean, it's so I recommend that. It's super light, just in a small backpack on my back, and
so
yeah,
you got to be pretty mobile. So it's as far as
yeah, you
carrying
have to
big
be.
amps around anymore, heavy amps and that kind of stuff. That's not really
I mean, with the
not.
upright, it's just kind of impossible unless
Yeah,
you, I don't know, have another suitcase. But carrying that on the subway with the upright is just it's too much.
right.
So I just try to be as light as I can as possible.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you hanging out and
Oh, thank you so much,
and
Matthew.
talking and sharing with us all your experience and all about this record, which everybody should go out and get before they're gone. I always say, especially with all these record collectors, they're always
Yeah.
worried about how many copies are made. Do you collect records, vinyl records, or do you?
I want to start. There's so many records I love, but I need to just start creating a collection. I have a few, but not enough.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely once you start down that road.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's endless.
it's keep collecting them and collecting them. I'm like, wow, I haven't listened to this one in 2 years. Let me go back and
Right.
pull this one out. But
Definitely.
anyways, yeah, I always tell people because it's like there's only 200 of these, and people are always of course vinyl collectors, they like that they're limited,
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just happy that these are available. So
Thank
yeah,
you so much, man. You really appreciate everything you're doing and your insight on music and everything. And yeah, I'm sure I'll meet you one day and we'll have another talk or
yeah,
anything.
definitely. Anytime you want to come on and chat, about jazz or what have music, let me know, and we'll
Definitely.
keep up. And when your new project is coming up, let me know, and we'll have you on and talk about that.
Definitely. We'll do that. We'll do that. I appreciate you reaching out and creating this great channel.
All right, thank you.
All
We'll
right.
see you.
See you soon.